Hey everybody, today we're going to be talking about the side effects of porn, what that means for you, and how you can actually reverse these effects if you're dealing with any of them. So let's jump in. All right, you guys, today's another Loom, PowerPoint, Google Slide type show. So hope you're enjoying it. If you like more of the BTF or the big talking face ones, let me know and I'll go back to those. But today I first wanted to start by talking about the standard training for therapists and psychiatrists often view problematic behavior as a symptom of underlying mental health disorders. If I go next here, boom, there we go. But high dopamine internet porn overuse can directly cause or intensify symptoms that mirror these actual disorders, okay? So if porn overuse is the root cause, therapy alone is not going to solve the problem. Abstinence and neuroplasticity or neuroplastic rewiring, aka recovery, will be required to reverse the side effects. So, how many of you have heard that, or how many of you have been in therapy and heard, like, once we understand the root cause of your depression, your porn habits are going to go away, right? Or when we know the trauma that you're subconsciously storing is uncovered, we can actually deal with it and your porn habits will stop. This is all assuming that your porn habit is a symptom of those underlying problems. And this can feel good because it takes the pressure off the porn use itself, and we can start pointing fingers at some other event or underlying emotion, right? But what doesn't feel good is hearing that our behaviors are direct causations to the daily pains and struggles that we're dealing with. That's a hard pill to swallow. The standard diagnostic manual used by therapists like myself and psychiatrists, the DSM, is built on a cluster of symptoms. Okay? If you check off enough boxes for low mood, fatigue, and lack of interest, you get a diagnosis of major depressive disorder. If you can't focus, you get labeled with ADHD. Okay, you just got to meet these symptoms, meet this criteria. Now, there is real value in those diagnoses for many people, but here's the flaw in how it's applied to digital behaviors like pornography. Clinicians are trained to treat problematic internet use as a coping mechanism, right? They think, oh, well, John's depressed, so he uses porn to feel better for 10 minutes, right? What they rarely consider is that the human brain was never evolved to handle hyper-stimulating, infinite, high-definition novelty at the click of a little button. So when you flood your nervous system with that level of artificial reward, your brain protects itself, it adapts, and it dials down its sensitivity. So when John feels depressed and foggy the next day, it isn't necessarily because he has this baseline clinical condition, okay, of major depressive disorder. It's because his dopamine baseline's crashed. His symptoms aren't the reason he's using. His symptoms are the result of his viewing pornography. And until a therapist asks about a screen habit or his digital consumption, they're just going to throw band-aids on an open wound. So now, before we get too deep into this, I want you to know that, oh my gosh, my freaking camera, dude. My camera's been blocking some things, right? Oh my gosh. Anyway, I got to remember my face here. I got to move it around. Let me put me on the brain. Before we get too deep into this, I want you to know that porn use can most definitely be a symptom of underlying issues like depression, anxiety, trauma. However, with most of my clients lately, that's not the case. So I'm pulling a lot of this information from my own experience with my clients, along with a handful of recent studies. So try not to get caught up into this all or nothing trap. Like, porn isn't always the direct cause of depression, and depression isn't always the direct driver for porn. Okay? Hope that makes sense. We're going to talk about 7 side effects. We're going to unpack all of them. So now let's get down to the main 7 things that I see come directly from porn use itself Not necessarily that these 7 side effects aren't using porn to cope. They're simply a direct cause from porn, if that makes sense. Okay, number 1 is porn-induced erectile dysfunction, or PIED. PIED. Now, don't any of you people get the wrong idea, okay? But first up is this whole physical performance. We're going to talk about 2 things. 10 or 15 years ago, erectile dysfunction in young, healthy men under 30 was actually pretty rare. We're talking like 3 to 4% type rare. But today, it's literally an epidemic, dude. We've seen studies that have gone as high as 30% of men under 30 struggle with ED. Why? Because it's real life intimacy can't compete with hyperstimulation, with pornography. And we know this. We've talked about this all the time. In the real world, there are no open tabs, there's no instant skips, and no supernormal stimuli, right? Your brain becomes conditioned to only respond to a screen. When a real partner's in front of you, the physical connection fails because your neural pathways are waiting for something more exciting, because that's what they're used to. You have to actually put in work when it comes to forming a connection with your partner, believe it or not. Putting effort into things like foreplay, making sure that both of you are able to orgasm. One of my favorite books that I've never read, I just like the cover, is She Comes First, or the title, I should say. And that's always stuck with me, dude. She Comes First. All right. And so doing that is a lot harder, pun intended. It's a lot harder to have sex with a real person. But the pros outweigh the cons. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll see that a lot of these cons that we're talking about might not actually be worth it, right, to have porn in your life. And number 2, next on the list, is performance anxiety. Hand in hand with porn-induced erectile dysfunction comes this performance anxiety. Once a man experiences a failure to perform in real life, he has this like psychological fear loop that takes over, right? And if you've experienced this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So instead of being present in the moment, this guy is entirely inside his own head, right? Monitoring his own physical state, terrified of failing again. And that adrenaline spike shuts down arousal completely, turning a physical desensitization problem into more of a mental performance trap. It's really difficult to keep it up when you're stressed. It takes way too much effort to keep up in an intimate connection with someone when you're in your head, right? The wrong head. You don't want to use the head up here when you're trying to get intimate. You know what I'm saying? But that's what it takes, and it's really hard. So it's difficult when you're in your head and you're wondering if they're going to judge you, or you, most of the time, when it comes to performance anxiety, you judge yourself, right? And that's hard. Number 3 is a severe concentration problem, or brain fog. This is more of a cognitive performance or cognitive downside of pornography. When you saturate your prefrontal cortex, right, this little guy up here we talked about, the front of your head, front of your forehead, this is the part of the brain that's responsible for things like impulse control, focus, and planning. It's the brakes of the brain. I forget what episode. It was like 5 episodes ago or something. You could find it where we talk about this. But with extreme dopamine spikes, it's going to downregulate your dopamine receptors. And without adequate dopamine signaling, things like reading a book, writing a report, holding a long conversation feels like swimming through mud. Dude, this is like some thick mud. Dick. Your brain is constantly seeking the next high, making deep focus feel like almost impossible, right? Number 4 is apathy and loss of drive. This leads directly into from number 3, okay, which is apathy. Dopamine isn't actually the chemical of pleasure. Yes, it's involved in it, all those good things, but it's the chemical of pursuit, more like. Okay, more than it is the chemical of pleasure. It's the chemical of pursuit and motivation. It's what drives you to build things, to go to the gym, to learn new skills, and pursue things like relationships. So when you satisfy your brain's drive circuit artificially with pornography, which takes 0 effort, your baseline drops below normal, and real life feels boring. Hobbies lose their color, career goals fade, and the general feeling of like, what's the point, man, starts to set in, which really goes hand in hand with number 5, which is depression, or it's really desensitization. But this isn't just a mental state, okay? Desensitization or this feeling of depression when it comes to porn. It's a whole neurochemical crash. After every massive dopamine spike, your brain experiences an equal and opposite drop below baseline. When your dopamine receptors are taken away, the everyday things of life start to feel boring. So without porn, life feels gray. And these things, these feelings, mimic similar feelings that come from clinical depression. So think of general reasons why people get depressed. A lot of the time it's around isolation, shame, lack of purpose and direction, etc., right? There can be a lot of things. But pornography can be a huge driver for all of those, thus causing depression. At the very least, desensitization, which is going to give you feelings of depression. It's really similar to depression. Number 6 is anxiety. Overstimulating your brain's reward system also dysregulates your nervous system. You keep your amygdala, your brain's threat center, on high alert. So a lot of heavy porn users live in a perpetual state of low-grade fight or flight. They can never really relax or chill out. They have a feeling of this like unaccountable sense of dread or tension that they mistake to be generalized anxiety disorder. And last, which I think is most, what do I want to say? Not common, but people tend to recognize this one first when it comes to pornography. At least a lot of my clients have. And this is number 7, which is social awkwardness. Things like human connection require subtly reading micro expressions, maintaining eye contact, feeling grounded. But heavy porn consumption alters how you view other human beings, often turning them into these objects or sources of judgment in your mind. And this creates an internal conflict, right? You feel exposed, overly self-conscious, and incapable of making natural, relaxed eye contact. A lot of my clients are young men, ranging from like ages 18 to 30. And a lot of them are single, and they notice a big difference in their dating game when they are watching porn actively, as in like, let's say once a day, versus when they are abstinent from pornography. And a lot of them report even seeing differences in how they interact with girls within like 3 days of no porn. For real. So can you imagine 30 days, 60 days, 180 days? Like your confidence is going to start to skyrocket, dude. But this is one of the first things that my clients notice is they start to become more socially awkward when they are actively watching porn. So now what, right? Like, what do we do now that we have, if you're dealing with any of these 7 or all of these 7, what the frick? Like, is it even possible to reverse those? And the answer is yes. It's yes, my dude. Okay. Your brain is plastic or neuroplastic, right? You can't really recycle your brain like you can plastic, but it's plastic. It's neuroplastic. Neuroplasticity means your brain adapts to what you feed it. Just as it adapted to hyperstimulation by desensitizing itself, it can readapt to normal, healthy baseline levels if you actually remove the artificial stimulus. I mean, duh, I think we know that. But here's how you actually reverse all those side effects in your nervous system. Step 1, I think to no surprise, let me move here, is complete abstinence, right? Complete taking porn out of your life, like no more. You can't heal a wound while continuing to poke it. Moderation rarely works in the beginning because your dopamine receptors need time to upregulate to rebuild themselves. So committing to a period of total abstinence from porn is a non-negotiable. Okay, it is. Now, if that's the thing that you struggle with most, which for a lot of people it is, or they wouldn't really be going to therapy, right? You can join my online community. It's free entry right now, okay? You can join it for free. It's currently free because there's not really anything in there yet, but a 12-week program is going to drop here soon. So if you want that for free before it gets locked behind a paywall, dude, you can join through the link down in the description. Okay, next is you need to expect the flatline. When you stop pornography, your brain goes through withdrawal, and this is often called the flatline. For a few weeks, your libido, which is things like your sex drive, might drop to zero. It might not have any energy. You might feel temporarily worse. Don't panic. Okay, take a deep breath. This is a sign that you're not broken forever. Okay, it's a sign that your brain is resetting its baseline. And when relapse happen, it normally happens here. Most people relapse during the flatline because they think that their system stopped working. Trust the process and push through it. Life is going to feel gray for some time, okay, which is what number 3 is here. While your brain refreshes or resets, you need to replace empty digital highs with real world inputs. So things like exercise, some cold showers, those suck, learning an instrument, or even learning a language, face-to-face social interactions, and being out in nature. These activities release healthy, manageable amounts of dopamine that teach your brain to find joy in real life again. So once you stop pumping a bunch of dopamine into the brain and just start doing regular, normal releases of dopamine, you might not feel it for a while, which is because of the desensitization. But you can resensitize yourself by over time training your brain like, hey, when I'm out in nature, or when I'm reading a book, when I'm going to the gym, this is the correct amount of dopamine that should be released. And at first, you won't be able to feel it, and so your brain's going to start to change. It's like, okay, well, if we're not going to have a whole bunch of dopamine pumped into us and this is all we're getting, then we need to bring some receptors back so we can actually feel again. Okay? And that can take some time. Okay, there's no real timeline for it, honestly. Anything between 60 to 180 days is when you can start feeling a difference there, a change. So here's a good timeline for you. For most people, noticeable changes in focus, mood, and social ease begin around the 30-day mark. But like I was saying earlier with some of my clients, at least with things like social awkwardness, a lot of that comes back pretty darn quick, even for some within 3 days, right? So you can see that a lot quicker than a lot of these other things. But full recovery, including the complete reversal of porn-induced erectile dysfunction and deep-seated performance anxiety, typically take between like 60 to 90 days of consistency to fully reset. And the thing with resensitization, like bringing your dopamine receptors back, that can take even longer. So plan on 90 plus as an accurate timeline for that. Here's my challenge for you, dude. If you've been in therapy or taking medication for years for anxiety, brain fog, low drive, and nothing seems to work, take a hard look at the habits that you have around pornography. For real. You might not have this incurable pathology. You might just have an overstimulated nervous system that's waiting for a break. So my challenge for you today is simple. Give yourself a 30-day reset. Cut out the hyperstimulating digital content entirely. This could even include things like Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Okay, track your focus, your mood, your anxiety, energy levels. See what happens when you give your brain the chance to heal itself. Okay, that's it for today's episode. You guys, thanks so much for listening. If this opened your eyes to anything, share it with a friend who needs to hear it. Stay focused, stay grounded. I'll catch you in the next episode. Peace.